A pleasant good afternoon and welcome to 7 Eyewitness News right here on Win TV. I'm your host, Sheldon Yearwood. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our online viewers at wintvworld.com. We're coming to you live from Launch Park in Shogunas. How was your weekend? Mine was very fulfilling indeed. I hope it was the same for you. Of course, making the news, there are lots happening. When you saw the front page of one of the daily newspapers today, the News to be exact, of course, the DPP's report into the investigation behind the Heights of Guanapo Church. Of course, the People's Party government had launched an investigation into suspected allegations of any sort of criminal offenses that may have linked to the former Prime Minister, Patrick Manning. One of them, of course, the allegedly using state funds to build the Mammoth Church. Well, the report came back over the weekend, and in the report it indicated that there was no findings at all. None of the findings could actually link Mr. Manning to any criminal sort of offenses. It also indicated that, of course, he didn't break any law and no state funds were used. So basically, Mr. Manning has been vindicated of any wrongdoing in terms of the law where the church was concerned. It did indicate in the report, however, that Mr. Pina, of course, the spiritual advisor, did visit the church and Mr. Manning as well. But in terms of any sort of anything illegal, nothing came out of the investigation as indicated by the DPP, Roger Gasper. So today we spoke to Senator Faris Alwari to get his spin, and he says he's not surprised, stating that Mr. Manning conducted his affairs above board where the church was concerned, and he, of course, as other members of the PNM, were always very confident that Mr. Manning would be vindicated. So what does this do to further boost the morale of the PNM, despite the fact that Mr. Manning is not really in active duty, if you want to call it that? But nevertheless, of course, many blamed the defeat in 2010, squarely on the shoulders of Mr. Manning. So what does this do for his character as well as for the PNM as they move forward? We'll discuss that later on during the course of the program. In some other news, the former minister in the Ministry of National Security, Subhash Pandey, will be joining us on set just about a half an hour to about 45 minutes or so to discuss some relevant issues surrounding crime and, of course, the decision that, of course, the government is going after to precept soldiers. He says that it can actually, be beneficial in a temporary measure, but says that the clause or certain clauses within this act, it can actually lead to more trouble for the government and the country if it is not examined carefully. So we're going to discuss some of the specifics surrounding this act, this legislation to precept soldiers, and of course touch on some other issues related to crime and national security in Trinidad and Tobago. This morning on the morning program, Wayne Chance and Pastor Clive Dutton had a number of issues they wanted to address. One of them is that Wayne Chance is stating that a certain policies taken by the PNM when they were in power sort of led to some of the problems in crime that we're seeing today. Very strong statements by Mr. Wayne Chance. We'll get to that in just a short while, as well as Pastor Clive Dutton making the point that we need to unite as a country, church, education system, or social sector. Everyone must unite to solve the problem, stating that the government cannot do it alone. All right, so those are some of the stories making news today. So what we're going to do at this time, in the essence of time, we're going to go straight to some of the stories making news today. Let's go to our first story. Well, all the political parties must unite to solve the country's runaway crime problem. This from a former minister in the Ministry of National Security, Subhash Pandey. According to him, there is no political party which has the ability to fight crime on its own. Pandey made the comment while speaking during a press conference at his office today.
No one government, no one party can deal with crime. The police themselves have said, we have been doing all we could do, and yet the murder rate spiraling. Everybody must let the criminals know. For the first time, all the parties are on one side. They're singing from the same hymn book. They're singing from the same page. There'll be no confusion among the parties, and we intend to go as a united, there's a need to go as a united front against crime.
He says the relevant bodies harmonize efforts in the fight against crime.
And my humble suggestion is, if we want to deal with crime, all the parties must come together. People's Partnership, PNM, MSJ, etc. We must NGOs, we must come together and form a national front to deal with crime.
Meanwhile, Public Relations Officer of the PNM, Faris Alwari, says he was not surprised by the findings of the DPP's report on the Church at the Heights of Guanapo. It indicated that not enough evidence was available to link any criminal offenses in relation to the project against former Prime Minister Patrick Manning. One of the allegations made by the People's Partnership government was that state funds may have been used for its construction. Senator Alwari said he was confident that Mr. Manning would have been vindicated.
I'm not surprised that the DPP has an exculpation on his findings of Mr. Manning because I don't expect that anyone will find something on that line. I think that care and caution was evidenced by the PNM. A lot of allegations were made against it under the last administration, but I want to remind you that it was the PNM that called a commission of inquiry into the construction sector under its own wish. And we're very pleased to say that they have referred this matter to the police for action. The DPP has shown that he has thoroughly investigated from his perspective that material which was put before him, and that there is no evidence whatsoever of wrongdoing on the part of Mr. Manning.
Meanwhile, turning his guns on the government, Alwari touched on the issue surrounding the infamous flying squad. He stressed the significance it would have on the country if it does not in fact exist.
But what we are talking about, if those allegations of the new flying squad's existence turn out to be true, it will have resulted in an ultra-vires, unlawful operation without the Commissioner of Police's inspection of an elite squad, without the benefit of protection and procedure. I think that the PNM is going to be enthused by its policy and by its persuasion of the national community that it is deserving of a chance to rule and govern the country.
At this time, let's take a short break. When we come back, we continue with more stories making news today right here on 7 Eyewitness News. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. And welcome back to 7 Eyewitness News right here on Win TV. Thank you, of course, for staying us in more stories making news at this time. National Security Minister Jack Warner needs to rethink his methods of crime fighting, says founder of Vision on Mission, Wayne Chance. Speaking on the Sunrise Morning program, Chance explained that the criminal culture in the nation is not started by those currently targeted.
We must be responsible and mature enough to know that we have neglected communities. We have failed to do proper assessment and they require intervention. You see, you must have a public health approach. And when I say a public health approach, I'm talking about if you go to a doctor, they diagnose the problem and then they develop a treatment. What are the treatment? Because apart from the individual problems that you have in Laventille and other communities need to be diagnosed in terms of what is the community illness.
Now, he added that there has been a lack of vision in addressing the real and powerful causes of crime. Former chairman of the Police Service Commission, Pastor Clive Dutton, added that so-called community leaders are not role models to be followed, as many actually promote crime.
We've had really a significant fall of role models, and perhaps what the politicians can begin to think about is becoming role models, people of integrity. Honesty is the best weapon in the fight against crime. So I don't think we have the will. I maintain, I could be wrong, I'm not God. I don't see a political instrument right now with the will, with the fortitude, to really touch where it has to be touched. Because I tell you something, we could talk about the little boys who we keep arresting all the time, but we have the big guys, who are violating our sacred space.
Pastor Dutton added that money motivates politicians and business owners to leave these people untouched. Both men agreed that greed and selfishness has caused the spiral of crime, and all citizens must work together for the best of the nation. Parents, church, and the media have been called to account for the state of crime in this country. Pastor Clive Dutton shared this view this morning. He said parents in other countries have a legal obligation to account for the crimes of their offsprings.
Issue of even legislation in terms of calling fathers to board. Like I went to London there, and I'm telling you, I went to Wales and Ireland, and I'm telling you there, when a young boy, underage guy, commits crime, parents have to come into the picture. The parents pay a price. I'm talking about legally, and that has got to come into the picture. But I'm
see this level of crime coming out of Mbakade?
And see, hold on a second. That's where I think the media has a role to play. The church, I agree with you totally. Let's go to the media. There's a guy got 8 A-level passes, right, from Mbakade. He was on page 6 or 7. Why he can't be on the front page? Why you have to have your head on top of a table to make a front page? You see, that is, all of us have a role to play. The church, the community, the politicians.
So what we're establishing here.
And in some more news, well, if there is need for a flying squad, then why not make it legitimate? Asked Pastor Clive Dutton, a former chairman of the Police Service Commission. He queried the secrecy of the alleged flying squad during a panel discussion this morning.
It begs the question, if we have an intelligence unit or units in the police force, how there was no knowledge of all these things taking place?
Yeah.
And if I agree with Helen Drayton, if you want to have a squad, let's do it legitimately. All right, not a clandestine approach to the thing.
He said that was his only issue with the squad. If indeed it exists, an investigation was launched by Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar on Friday into existence of the squad. Bishop, when we come back, well, congratulations to a mother of 6. That's right. Of course, a long-awaited delivery of the sextuplets took place today, and there was a press conference at the Mount Hope Maternity Hospital. So we give you those details and more coming up in more news. Stay tuned. And welcome back to 7 Eyewitness News right here on WIN TV. Thank you, of course, for staying with us. Remember, later on in the program, we're joined by Mr. Subhash Pandey, our special guest in studio this evening. In some more news, well, the possibility of a bribery act will be discussed this Friday when members of the Trinidad and Tobago Transparency Institute will meet for an anti-corruption conference at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. A bribery act will be among topics deliberated. Speaking with 7 Eyewitness News today, Chairman of the Transparency Institute, Derek Murray, disclosed that the aim of the act will be to include as a criminal element individuals on every side of the criminal act. Murray recognized, however, that there would be some challenges to the implementation of such an act.
For a bribe to be accepted, a bribe has to be paid. And therefore, we are looking at also ensuring that payment of a bribe is considered a criminal offense and pursued. And so we are looking at some of the models for bribery acts in different jurisdictions and seeing whether that could be related to Trinidad and Tobago. Sometimes we don't have the wherewithal for enforcing it or ensuring it's enforced. You go from small things to bigger things, and we want to make sure that what we have in place is enforced, or if what we have in place is not adequate, then we need to strengthen those laws.
The chairman said also on the agenda is talks on corruption in the public sector. Murray indicated that confidence needs to be restored to different public bodies as citizens look to them for security.
We need to ensure that, yes, police have, people have confidence in the police, the protective services. We have confidence in the prosecution system. We have confidence in the judiciary that, things that happen will be investigated, will be prosecuted, and people will have justice will be done and seen to be done.
In some more news, a popular advocate for prisoner rehabilitation, Wayne Chan, says the People's National Movement gave criminals power. Now, while he agreed that the PNM they were challenged with crime, he said their methods used to create peace within the hotspot areas actually gave these persons power.
The PNM, right, getting into the politics now, when they were in office, had a challenge with crime because they, within their own administration style, had created this kind of criminal activities in Trinidad and Tobago. And when you have other governments that come into play, they have to now treat with that. And even in treating with it, I want to tell you that I am not too impressed because I am saying that there is more could be done.
This, he blamed politicians, saying they use criminals to their own advantage.
For many years, people have enslaved certain communities to the advantage. For the political ambition, to have that kind of upper hand over people, to do the bidding and so forth.
In some other news, 2 of the employees who were stationed at the Navet Reservoir when 2 men died have been suspended as investigations continue. But the fatal boating accident claimed the lives of staff member Anthony Warwick, 54, and former Wassa Estate Constable Basdir Ramlal, 52, on Saturday, March 2nd. Wassa indicated through a press release on Monday that the vessel on which the party occupied is only authorized to carry between 4 to 6 persons. However, the crew numbered 13 on Saturday. The boat was overloaded. Of the remaining 11 persons, 3 were taken to the San Fernando General Hospital, where further 2 of the victims were treated and subsequently discharged. 1 more remains warded. Let's take a short break. When we come back, lots more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to 7 Eyewitness News right here on Win TV. Thank you, of course, for staying with us. Well, we're going to go to a very interesting story, and we're going to put up the phone lines one time. Of course, it's about the successful delivery of sextuplets. Now, Trinidad and Tobago may be considered a third world country by some, but performed the first world surgery today. First delivery of 6 babies at the Mount Hope Hospital this morning. The mother of the sextuplets gave premature birth at 23 months, the first not only for TNT but for the entire Caribbean. Now, Dr. Barrett Basso, who performed the delivery, said it was a high-risk decision to perform the delivery. But after more than 3 hours of deliberation, they proceeded as the mother's conditions were worsening.
We actually had this patient for about 23 weeks. We kept this patient in hospital, and her condition actually changed over the last few days. Yesterday, when I saw her just after 7, with her mother and father, who were very worried, very concerned about her health, that was when we made a decision to deliver her today. Because we actually had planned to do the delivery next week, Thursday, on the 14th of March. But we were worried that this patient's condition was getting worse. This mother. And of course, we were also worried that the babies may succumb.
Also said in his 27 years of experience, this decision was by far the hardest one he has ever had to make. He commended his medical staff for their overall effort in the historic delivery. All 6 deliveries, he said, took place within 3 minutes.
We started, the incision on the skin actually started just after 10. The babies, the first one was delivered at 10 minutes past 10, and the last was delivered at 10:13.
He divulged that the mother is fairly stable but will be under medical watch for the next few days. The baby's weight ranged from just over 1.5 pounds to under 3 pounds, which, according to Dr. Basso, is not too bad in terms of their maturity. 5 of the 6 babies, he said, continued on ventilators. Over the next 48 hours would be most critical to determine the baby's progress.
These babies, you have to watch them very carefully, especially for the first 48 hours. If everything goes well and they are weaned off the ventilator, I'm not saying that everything will be normal, still have to be careful, but I think the first 48 hours will be the critical time here.
Of course, very interesting indeed. That, of course, what we have to also look at with this story, and we'll be discussing that later on with Dr. Diane Douglas, some of the psychological, impact or impact that this will have on her, you know, have a look at there will be pros and cons, and that's always a risk with these type of deliveries. But I thank God that all the babies are doing quite well at this time. Let's take your calls, just a few, because our guest is actually in studio, so waiting to come on set. Dr. Subhash Pandey, let's take a few of your calls before I bring you on. Caller, pleasant good day, you're on the air, welcome. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Sheldon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Sheldon, I hope everything goes well with those babies and, you know, everything, you know, in God's hand, and God will take care of them and bring them, you know, to safety and everything.
Amen.
Sheldon, is either you spend a lot of time in the sun over the weekend, or the lights in the studio not very kind to you at all this afternoon. Right? Anyway, Pastor Dotton is saying that parents should be charged for when their children do wrong, right? But here we have, when you remember when the bandit got killed by the taxi driver, when he tried to rob him, the mother is saying, my son is no bandit. She said that I am still in shock. The world is painting this picture of my son as a bandit. He is not a bandit. I'm not saying what he did was right, but he does not go around just robbing people and holding up people. So Sheldon, what it is he did for him to get killed?
Maybe,
I mean,
maybe just had a
you know,
off day.
what is wrong with these parents? And last but not least, Sheldon, I would like to tell Faris Alwari, don't hurt your biceps patting yourself on the back, because the DPP feel all of us out here are fools. They never interviewed Patrick Manning, they never interviewed Kaner, but he came to the conclusion that no wrongdoing was done. What happened? That mammon fall from the skies? Were you there, Sheldon? Did you partake of it? No. What happened to all the utilities and the roads and things that were paved around that church? Who did it? Something is wrong, and I want to tell the DPP, we are not fools out here, and instead of the flying squad, maybe we should hire some Ghostbusters, because apparently a ghost built that church in Guanapo. Sheldon, you have a good evening.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. Let's continue. Let's talk about 2-3 calls quickly. Caller, on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Sheldon.
Hi, good day. Go ahead.
I have some comment to make.
What's that?
I have a comment to make. My neighbor,
I'm barely hearing what you're saying, ma'am.
my neighbor
Uh-huh.
who lives on Jackson Street in Crip, bandit went in their home, right? You hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
Bandit went in their home, the daughter and the son, right? And they threw the bag.
You need to speak up a little bit. Your voice keeps dipping for some reason.
Okay. They threw the bag inside the garbage bin, right? The daughter-in-law handbag. And when they asked the garbage man for the bag, he said no. And they had to pay money to get the bag. They had to pay money to get the bag from the garbage bin. I mean, that is really bad.
So basically, you all want to get back the bag, and here, what to do? Leave. This sounds very interesting. Leave your number off air for me with the director if you can. And someone will contact you to kind of follow up on that, all right?
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot. Let's take one more call, because I really want to bring our guests on set. Caller, you're on the air, go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good day.
Yeah, they call here. Hello? Good afternoon, Sheldon.
Yeah, good day to you. Go ahead.
I want to say congratulations, the wonderful job you are doing.
Thank you.
And God bless your son, and we always support you.
Thank you very much, sir.
And you can rest assured you have my full support.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good day.
You too. I know that voice very well. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Mr. Subhash Pandey joins us on set. Stay tuned. Welcome back to 7 Eyewitness News right here on WIN TV. Thank you, of course, for sticking with us. Joining me on set, former Minister in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Subhash Pandey. A pleasure. Thank you for coming on the program.
Good afternoon.
You raised some serious concerns.
Indeed, I do.
Earlier on today concerning, of course, a decision by the government, of course, a bill being laid before Parliament in terms of precepting soldiers. Now, this is not a new concept. It was discussed under the PNM. If I stand correct, you can correct me if I'm wrong, under the NR as well, if I'm not too certain. But it has been debated for years and years.
It was touted before.
Now, people are at this point, at their boiling point where crime is concerned in Trinidad and of course, many have welcomed this. However, there some serious concerns have been raised, including by yourself. What are some of the concerns that you are expressing?
Well, before we go into that, I want to say there must be a national united front to deal with crime. All the political parties need to come together. Neither one can solve crime. Time for blame game has gone. We must all come together to deal with crime. What the government has decided is that the crime rate has gone through the roof. The types of killings now have become more atrocious, and serious times need serious action. We are in desperate times, and we need desperate actions. I support the move of bringing soldiers in the system.
All right.
However, because you see, the police has said, we have done everything we could do, we can't do anything more. You have a large body of men sitting there in the army. I say use the resources. However, I have some concerns with the drafting of the law.
Before you continue,
Sure.
just want to just stick up in for a second. Do you see what the police say they've done all they can? Do you honestly believe, in your professional opinion, that the police, they can't do more? Instead of
I
having to
feel
bring
they are
the army.
frustrated, they are demotivated because the crime is overwhelming them. And I think this is a cry from the Commissioner of Police that the government has answered.
Okay,
Yes.
understood. All right, continue.
So they need this help. What the law, however, says is a one clause piece of amendment which says that if a soldier is assisting the police and is in the is engaged in assisting police, that soldier will be granted all the privileges, immunities, and powers of the police. I say that is good enough, but for the terms of responsibilities, but there's a lacuna in the law, and the lacuna is that there are no corresponding duties and responsibilities of the soldiers. In that, you'll know that police have wide powers. For example, if they suspect that you committed an arrestable offense, they can lock you up without a warrant. If they think that the man who has committed an arrestable offense goes in a property, they could break down the door. They could arrest you for any little offense committed in their presence. And those circumstances, when you give so much power to this army, who have been trained to use excessive force, because when they go out there, they meet the enemy, either you kill me or I kill you. We need to ensure that there are structures in place to ensure that, that they act responsibly. And that's what I'm saying. As a matter of fact, Section 33 of the Police Service Act says that we give you these powers, we give you the authority, we give you the immunities. However, you are bound by certain duties and responsibilities. For example, standing orders, how to treat prisoners, how to interrogate prisoners, how to prosecute prisoners. The soldiers, it would appear to me, do not fall within that ambit.
But didn't the minister make mention that they would be trained in most of them, all of these areas?
Well, my experience in law and in the politics, you don't put the powers and immunities in writing and then tell me that by viva voce evidence or oral evidence, we will see about it. We'll train them properly, put it in the legislation, so that when you go to court, you can refer to the legislation. But if there's no legislation, it means nothing.
So basically you're saying they put the cart before the horse, basically.
I don't want to be so harsh. What I say is we need to put things in place to ensure that the soldiers behave in a particular way.
Now, from my knowledge, I don't think they actually put a time frame on how long this will go on for, providing everything is passed, if it will be a temporary or a permanent measure. Did they indicate it's going to be permanent?
No, and that is one of my recommendations, is that you are bringing something new into the system, something which may affect people's rights. And therefore, we should have an amendment to this bill to have something called a sunset clause. A sunset clause gives the bill life for a certain period. If it is not working, after that period, you don't come back to Parliament and the bill comes to an end. The act becomes an end. However, if you want to bring it back after a particular period, then you go to Parliament, look at the legislation, see how it worked, and after that, you can say, look, let's go for another year or so. And that will alleviate the fears of the people who may think that we are militarizing the country and leading us to a military state.
What do you think is a good time frame to, let's say, to test this? 6 months, a year?
I say between 6 months to 1 year.
6 months to 1 year.
Yes.
Now, you've been involved in criminal law for quite some time. So,
Over 2 decades.
right? That is quite some time. Crime in itself, I mean, you made a point that it's a united stand must be taken.
Yes,
Pastor Dutton made that point this morning. He has
Really?
been making that point several times. But do we really have that unity in terms of, let me deal first with the politicians.
Yes.
Different parties we have.
Yeah.
Do we really have that unity, honestly? I heard
And that
McDonough-
is why we must now have a paradigm shift. What has been happening in the past is blame game. You were worse than I am. You are worse than I am. And unless the politicians do not come together and form that national united front, the bandits will continue to laugh at us. And I feel that we must muster that strength and that courage to go forward. If we don't do that, everyone will try to push the other one aside, pretend you are assisting when deep down inside you're laughing. We have to cut that out, and we must all put our shoulders to the wheel and move forward.
Understood.
I don't know if Pastor Dutton is the man to lead this movement, because he is a man with energy.
But since you're on that note, I gather you strongly believe that he could actually be a force in terms of putting a group together and
I feel Pastor Dutton has the integrity and the public support to make that call to move forward. And Pastor Dutton, I am certain, can meet most of the leaders and speak to them. He is a good man.
Understood. Now, let's go now to the social groups, the various NGOs. You know, every day I see a new NGO popping up in the newspaper, popping up on television, social groups. But they seem to act within themselves. And that is a concern for me.
That is true.
Because if you're for the people, why am I not seeing a united front where all these groups come together as one? They seem to have their own personal interest.
Because they are parochial and they come from small districts. Everyone probably really trying his best to make a contribution to reduction of crime. But if the larger groups, which are the political parties, come together first, other people fall in line. You can't say they are selfish. When all the political parties come together, opposition, government parties, fringe parties, come together and invite all the NGOs to come together, I think we'll come under umbrella. We need to come together by any means whatsoever.
You've been, as I said, over 2 decades you mentioned,
Yes.
and reviewing the pattern of crime in this country over the past, let's say, 2 decades, we're seeing younger and younger and younger offenders in the early teens, and the crime is even getting worse. I made the point, I've been making the point for some time now, that I honestly believe that this issue starts at the home, in the communities. How are we to address that issue? Now, it may sound like I'm beating a dead horse, because it feels that way sometimes, because I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard that. You
Sure.
yourself may have said that.
Sure.
Others have said it, yet nobody's doing nothing. I shouldn't say nothing, but I'm wondering if we're taking the wrong approach.
If
in getting into
it is in the
homes.
home, it is difficult to identify every home which has a problem. I don't
Not
think...
every home, but communities.
Okay, community.
Yeah.
I think the school is a place you can start to penetrate the communities. Because in every school we have counselors, in every school we have problems. I think we need to go into the schools and deal with the problems there. And from the school, go back to the home. Because it is so amorphous and scattered. It's really difficult to work communities. Use institutions that we have to move backwards into the system.
But not knocking the education system, but how some of these counselors, how many of them are really functioning properly in their role? That's the next thing. That's another question you have to
Well,
ask.
then we'll make them work. You can't be collecting money and pretending you're working. We'll make them work. And my view is crime cannot be solved by the Ministry of National Security alone. I want to recommend that we have a Ministry of Crime Reduction, a Ministry of Crime Reduction.
Within the ministry itself?
No,
Oh,
a Ministry of Crime.
a separate ministry.
Probably
Okay.
headed by the Prime Minister with a junior minister. And they could pull all the ministries together, pull the strings in every ministry to make a new system to go forward. Because the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of National Security cannot interfere with the Ministry of Education. You have to talk to the minister, then there's a lot of bureaucracy. You want to talk to the Ministry of Social Development, you've got to meet the minister, you have problems. You need a coordinated ministry.
A piece from each ministry.
No, the Prime Minister or somebody sits there and says, I am heading the Ministry of Crime Reduction. And we the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office has the power to call on any ministry to fall in line immediately.
All right, interesting. Let's take a break. When we come back, lots more. Mr. Subhash Pandey right here on 7 Eyewitness News. Stay tuned. Welcome back to 7 Eyewitness News. Our special guest, Mr. Subhash Pandey, as we, of course, dealing with the whole issue surrounding crime in Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of National Security, Jack Warner, he has been criticized by many for not getting a grip on the problem. But honestly, it is a mammoth task in any country to deal with crime. In your honest opinion, in light of all the resources that is available to him, how do you rate his performance? How do you believe that he's going thus far despite all the different challenges?
I was there.
Exactly. That's why
I know. I feel sorry for him. I know the pressure you're undergoing there. And what is happening is one ministry alone cannot deal with crime. And if you have one ministry, no matter the amount of money you pump in that ministry, because of the nature of the ministry and the boundaries of the ministry, you can't go beyond. You need a multi-ministry approach. And that's why I say only the office of the Prime Minister can say, education, I want to go in the schools, put dogs in the schools, check for drugs, say social welfare, look somebody down there, a child is so and so, I have reports, go and do it for me now. Oh, the Prime Minister's office is the only ministry which has that power. What is happening? Every ministry, as it stands, have its own agenda. And when one minister speaks, another minister may want to help, but then you'll have to reorient. But with somebody, when you're in the Ministry of Crime Reduction, could pull on any ministry, health, any ministry, education, just pull and say, we want to go down the road. And it is that way you can develop a crime plan. No one ministry cannot develop a crime plan. Develop a crime plan.
Just want to stray a bit as you mentioned about education. Now,
Yes.
we had a situation recently in Sealots. We all know about it.
Yes.
With the mother and the two children who were
Sure.
killed. And again, we're hearing this cry from people, not just in certain areas like Sealots or Laventille, these areas, where they're stating that the police reacts a particular way, you know, when trying to quell a crowd or to quell a protest, as the case may be. They're also stating that sometimes, depending on the area that you're from, there's a different reaction from police officers, even though it may not be a violent situation. Do you honestly believe that we need to seriously check on some of our police officers? Because what's happening, Mr. Pandey, you find that, let's look at Hayden Man Warren, that's a flip. Decorated officer, doing his job, got shot in line of duty and killed.
Sure.
Right? And despite all the great work that he may have been doing, you have people who...
I have personal knowledge about
I
it.
know that. And you have the public still now, they still have a sort of grudge against the police because they find that the majority of the officers, or the perception is that the majority of them either...
I don't think the majority...
But that's a perception.
And then
by
we
the
must
public
commend the
sometimes.
Commissioner of Police when he went there to apologize and quell the situation. At least the leadership of the police service has sent a message, and you must commend the Commissioner for
Agreed.
that. If you have police behave in a particular way, of course the commander of the region could speak to them. And then police are also human beings also. And it may be necessary that the population... we are planning to form an NGO called Friends of the Police. So we're looking at the police back for them. Instead of police coming to you and they're trying to reach out to you, it's time for the population to reach out to the police. But the point
But
you're asking me,
they're afraid.
that is why you need NGOs to come out and deal with it. The point you're asking me about police treating different areas differently, that may be so. And I think the commissioner and the police executive and the Police Service and Welfare Association should be speaking to their police officers.
Right. Now, some news just coming in. Again, one man is in critical condition and 3 injured after a drive-by shooting near the Beetham Dam. Police found 28 spent shells at the scene. What is really going on?
We got to get the guns off the streets. We got to ensure our porous borders are controlled. Because you see, the shooting there, these fellas can't go abroad and buy guns. They can't buy bullets. Where is the middleman? Where is the importer? What steps are we taking to keep guns, to prevent guns from coming in?
Mr. Mandy, there are those who would say, and I'm being very honest,
Sure.
listen, that government now, government of the past,
Sure.
they know who these men are, or these women are who are bringing it in. So how do we get, now you hear that talk all the time, how do we get them to do what needs to be done? If the allegations are true.
I don't believe that those allegations are true.
All right.
Because no government would like to have a crime situation on its hand of this magnitude and allow it to come in. Because I don't think that the amount of money generated is sufficient to bribe ministers. Put it like this.
Understood.
It's men just bringing in the guns and something is wrong with it.
But why do you think it's so difficult to detect these people bringing in the guns? Why is it so difficult? Oh, because it's not now it's been happening, it's been many years.
Well, first of all, I'm saying we've got to protect our porous borders. We ought to ensure that the port is monitored tightly, because my information is most of the guns come through the ports in containers. Most of drugs come through in containers. We need to have intelligence in the port. These fellows who shoot in Laventille, as you spoke about today, they didn't bring in one gun, no one bullet. It came in by the importers and distributors. Let us catch them. We must catch them. As the population just motivate the police to go. And that's why we're asking for the $1 million for Manwaring's family. Motivate them. You go, brother. You fight. If you happen to fall in line of duty, we will look at your back. We will take care of your family. We need to motivate police officers.
See, honestly, many officers are demotivated at this.
Many are demotivated. That's why we are asking, give Manwaring's family the $1 million. Because he told his wife, you don't work, you stay by children, I will work hard. The poor lady never worked one in her life. Gone, mortgage to pay. And that is why I'm making the call. Let us look and love and take care of our policemen, and you'll see a reaction. Love breeds love. And antagonism breeds antagonism. There must be a paradigm shift.
Now, just want to close off on this point. So we touched on several issues.
Sure.
The precept, the runaway crime problem, the trust in the police service. Where do we begin? After today, looking at another day tomorrow, where do we begin the healing process?
The healing process, first of all, our Constitution has created a political system where everyone is fighting one another. We need to throw that behind our backs, and we must start with all the political parties first. Then we go to all the NGOs, the Chamber of Commerce, the labor movement, bring them in, and then you go to the small NGOs which you speak about, and reach out to them. I feel that's the way to go.
And in terms of course, the partnership, of course, had third year and counting in terms of, being in government. Despite all the challenges, would you say that they have more or less, how should I say, settled down within this third year, dealing with some of the issues, particularly crime?
I think crime is overwhelming all of us. And they're trying. But we need to have a national crime plan involving every political party, every NGO, and when the people participate in a crime plan, I feel it will work. But you just can't say, I'm coming up next week with a crime plan, and throw it at the people. We need to get together and let the population throw up a crime plan and stop the blame game. But I better than you better than me, you were worse than I was.
Because that will never solve anything.
It will never solve anything.
Agreed. Totally agree with you with that. Spaniel, pleasure as always.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for coming on the
Sure.
program.
Thank you so much.
Of course, former Minister of the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Subhash Pandit, was touching on several sensitive issues in relation to crime and national security in Trinidad and Tobago. When we come back from the break, lots more on 7 Eyewitness News. Stay tuned. And welcome back to 7 Eyewitness News right here on WIN TV. Thank you for staying with us. On the line at this time, we have clinical psychologist Dr. Diane Douglas as we shed some light on this groundbreaking delivery of sextuplets. Dr. Douglas, a pleasant good evening to you.
Oh, good evening to you too, Sheldon.
And thank you for joining us.
Yes.
breakthrough. Everybody's smiling, and we are thankful to God that the babies are doing fine. But of course, they are being closely monitored. But I want to take it a little further in terms of the psychological impact that something like this can have on the mother. Now, yes, the mother will be relieved that all the babies are doing well, but in terms of support, how critical is this for support now for this mother?
Well, first of all, Sheldon, I have to say congratulations to mother and father for this sixth addition to their family. I understand this is their first, not child, but children that they have had. So this is very special for them. The support, Sheldon, cannot be underestimated. At this point, you're going to need all hands on deck for everyone to give the support that is needed in the care of these children, but also to give the parents relief from time to time. Because if you recall, this is the first time they're going through this. They have 6 babies to deal with, and they have to rest at times. You know, they must eat, they must rest. And so it is really important that they have support.
Understood. Now, in terms of, now we're looking at, now again, you mentioned about support. In terms of, I don't know how to get into what can happen to a mother at this stage in terms of, can you see depression seeping in any time here? Because of all that.
Yes, but we wouldn't want to, we wouldn't want to call depression upon her.
I know that. That doesn't.
I'm sorry, Sheldon, I'm not hearing you.
No, I understand that, but again, all these things we need to be wary of that she will not slip into it, you know?
Yes. And you see, the thing is that postpartum depression after giving birth is a reality. There is always the risk of that. And it happens when mothers feel overwhelmed. It can, mothers who are first-time mothers are also at risk for this. And so in order to prevent that, I mean, sometimes you're happy and you find yourself crying for no reason because of that overwhelmed feeling and the feeling of being inadequate. Your first-time mother, can I really do this?
Right.
And so we would want to be supportive of her at this point in time to ensure that her emotional state is balanced, and also to monitor how she is doing, even as we monitor how the babies are doing. It will be important, too, for her to dictate what she needs.
Right.
Because you see, it's one thing to decide that it's great to have a lot of support, but then she might be a very private person, she might be a quiet person, she might be a person who may not like a lot of people in her space. And therefore, it is important that she is listened to, where she has support, where people allow her to take the lead with that support and not decide that they will take over and tell her what to do. So she must be given the opportunity to do that. And that is one way to also assist her in not slipping into depression.
Exactly, because none of us want that at all, because it's already a mammoth responsibility for both parents. Now, I want to get to the media. My last question before you go. Now, in terms of the media, should we be even more sensitive now to this woman and her need? Because you know that it's like a media friends, everybody want to see the babies, etc. But should the media at this point in time take a back seat, basically? Should we take a back seat and give her room to breathe?
Well, you know, Sheldon, is the media ever sensitive? That is
yes, we are.
usually how the media moves. And so I am very, very pleased that you would raise it. Yes, I think there should be a lot of sensitivity here. I think also that what mom and dad could do, because this is of national importance, schedule a time that you can, invite the media in and let the media know in advance how long you'd be able to tolerate their presence. So you give the nation a chance and you understand the celebration, but that the media, when the parents say, okay, enough is enough, that they will respect that too, because they need to be able to deal with their huge now new family.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Douglas, for that brief but very insightful, of course, information on the mother and her babies. Thank you for your time as always.
It's nice to celebrate life instead of death.
Amen.
Really,
Always.
I'm happy to do that.
Always. All right, thanks a lot for your time. Clinical psychologist Dr. Diane Douglas, of course, touching on the issue surrounding the sextuplets that, of course, were delivered today at the Mountain Hospital, and a key support. And you're going to hear that right through in terms of this family, where there's support from family, friends, even the state, in whatever capacity, the hospital, etc. Right across the board, and even the media. We need to show support as well. And yes, of course, we all want to get, the full story, etc. But just be mindful of her state, and of course, not getting a state of anxiety, while she's still recuperating from, of course, what would have been a very, trying delivery for her. But nevertheless, trying 9 months, actually. So the best congratulations to her, and of course, her husband, children, all of them. Congrats. All God's blessings to you, and may all your children, of course, be well indeed. We have some more news coming for you in terms of health in our health capsule for today. Let's take a look at it.
Good evening once again. I am Michelle Michael with your Health Minute on 7 Eyewitness News. For years, research has suggested a daily tipple of wine may help to prevent heart disease. Now it seems it even has benefits for those who have already suffered a heart attack. New research shows patients who have had a heart attack are less likely to have another one and stand a better chance of living longer if they enjoy wine in moderation rather than abstaining. The study, published in the International Journal of Cardiology, is one of the first to look at how wine affects mortality in those who already have serious heart disease. Men and women drinking around half a litre of either red or white wine a day, equivalent to 2 large glasses, were 13% less likely to suffer another cardiac event, such as a heart attack. They also reduced their chances of dying from heart disease by around 17% compared to non-drinkers. But the researchers from Harvard Medical School and a number of research centers across Italy stressed the findings only apply to patients who were already drinking wine on a regular basis when they joined the study. They warned against heart attack victims taking up the habit just to try and prevent future problems. Well, that has been your Health Minute right here on 7 Eyewitness News. I am Michelle Michael. Good evening.
Listen, let's take a short break. When we come back, lots more on 7 Eyewitness News. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. And welcome back to 7 Eyewitness News right here on WIN TV. Thank you, of course, for staying with us. Well, at this time, we go to one of our few features this evening. Of course, every day, it's our Tech Minute. Let's see what's happening in technology today.
A very good evening to you and welcome to your Tech Minute right here on 7 Eyewitness News. It may not be quite as sophisticated as the rumored iWatch, but a new bracelet costing £30 aims to tell you when your wife is calling or when your favorite celebrity has tweeted. The Embrace Plus connects via Bluetooth to an iPhone or Android handset and can be programmed to flash with different colors when a particular person emails, tweets, or sends a Facebook message. Its innovators claim it is perfect for those who can't bear to put their phone in their pocket. The bracelet uses Bluetooth to communicate with a mobile phone and is set up using a special app. Its makers claim almost any color can be displayed from the color wheel in the accompanying app. Embrace Plus is for those who have a busy lifestyle and want to stay connected with their smartphones, the firm says. The bracelet will last for 10 days on a single charge and is expected to show around 100 alerts a day to the average user. The design, available in 3 shapes, is based on a gemstone. Well, that has been your Tech Minute right here on 7 Eyewitness News. Stay tuned for much more up next.
Well, very interesting indeed. I'll pass. Let's go now to our regional roundup for today. Let's see what's happening in the Caribbean.
Hello and welcome to your regional roundup right here on 7 Eyewitness News. I am Michelle Michael. Good evening. 4 daring daylight robberies of visitors in the space of a week have the chief of 2 popular hotels at his wits' end, and the leading hotelier has had enough. He wants to see authorities take a fresh look at the Cash for Gold enterprise, a phenomenon he believes is the biggest threat to Barbados' already struggling tourism industry. Requesting anonymity, the chairman and managing director of the two South Coast hotels said he had already written the president of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association about it, but planned to raise it again at the next monthly meeting. He revealed that on one day last week, 2 guests were robbed of their gold jewelry at 11 a.m. and a couple days later, innocent tourists using the popular Richard Hayes boardwalk in Hastings, Christchurch, were also relieved of their precious metals. The hotelier is convinced that this type of action has everything to do with the Cash for Gold business. He calls on police to take the necessary actions. And now over in St. Kitts Nevis, police are investigating a shooting incident where at least one assailant fired gunshots into the office of Minister of Public Works and Utilities of St. Kitts and Nevis, Alexis Jeffers. Reports indicate that on March 1st, sometime after 8 p.m., someone fired 3 shots into the minister's office at the administration building in Charlestown. It was said the person may have fired into a window of the office from downstairs as the bullets were lodged in the office ceiling. Press Secretary of the NIA, Mervyn Hanley, said while Jeffers was in the building at the time, he was not in the office. I will give a report and more information as soon as I'm allowed to by the authorities, he said. 7 Eyewitness News understands that the minister was meeting with the board of the Housing Corporation when the shooting occurred. A total of 5 persons were present when the shots rang out. Reports stated that everyone is safe, but understandably shook up. And now over in Jamaica, 2 15-year-old students at a high school in rural St. Catherine have been out of school for more than 6 weeks after the institution sent them home for sexual misconduct on the compound. However, despite complaints to the Ministry of Education and the Child Development Agency, the children are still languishing at home with no indication if they will ever be able to continue their education. Explaining the sequence of events, an aunt of the male student said that she has exhausted all options to get her nephew back into school, as even the Ministry of Education has refused to offer any assistance. According to the aunt, on January 22nd, the 2 grade 9 students were turned out of school when news of the incident circulated among fellow students. The guardians were called to a meeting with the principal, who informed them that the students were not suspended or expelled, but given the nature of the incident, it would be best if they were sent elsewhere. Thus far, nothing has been done. A detailed letter outlining the situation and seeking the ministry's intervention in getting the children admitted to another school was sent to the Chief Education Officer, Grace McLean, but outside of acknowledging receipt, nothing was done. Well, that has been your regional roundup right here on 7 Eyewitness News. I am Michelle Michael. Do have yourselves a great evening.
Very interesting, of course. Thanks to Michelle Michael for our regional roundup. Now, this story really brought a broad smile to my face, and I think it did for the entire world. And this is about what many are seeing as a breakthrough, and it is a breakthrough in healthcare. An American child born with HIV cured. That's right, cured after being treated with antiretroviral medication. Now, in a case that could possibly yield huge developments, it could help to improve the treatment of babies infected at birth. We have more in this report from the BBC in our special health capsule today.
Around 300,000 babies around the world are born already infected with HIV each year. There's no cure for the disease, and at the moment they face a lifetime of drug taking to keep the virus at bay. But all that could be about to change, because doctors in a Mississippi hospital believe they may have stumbled across an effective way of eradicating HIV in newborns. In July 2010, a little girl was born infected with the virus. Her mother had just discovered she was HIV positive and hadn't had the chance to take the usual medications while she was pregnant that would have protected her baby from the disease. As a result, doctors gave her a new, more aggressive treatment with 3 antiretroviral drugs. Babies are usually given just 1. 18 months later, the mother took the child off her medication for almost a year. But when they returned to the clinic and doctors tested the girl, the virus had vanished.
The child remains off of antiretroviral therapy and is doing well. So we believe that perhaps the initiation of very early antiretroviral therapy prevented the formation of the viral reservoirs in central memory CD4 T cells that are the barriers to cure, and really sets the stage for a pediatric cure agenda going forward.
The findings are encouraging, but experts say it's unlikely to work for older children or adults because the virus will already have become too established in their bodies. The results will be followed with great interest by doctors battling to treat those who are already infected. Almost 3.5 million children around the world are HIV positive. The overwhelming majority of those, 91%, are in sub-Saharan Africa, with around 300,000 spread across the rest of the world. If the Little American Girl's treatment is confirmed as an effective cure, it could present new hope for future generations.
Brilliant, brilliant story there, indeed. Of course, still a lot of work, still a lot more work to be done, but definitely a step in the right direction. Of course, put God first and anything can happen. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined on the line by Dr. Diane Douglas, and as we talk about this breakthrough delivery of sextuplets at the Mountain Maternity Hospital, let's look at the pros and cons of something of this development. When we come back, that and more. Stay tuned.